Hello and welcome to the Ecoholics Heart to Heart with Toppers. Our guest for today is the RBI Grade B DEPR topper, Kanupriya Sharma. Welcome to the show, Kanupriya.
Thank you so much, sir.
We hope that you could let the little secrets out now since you have emerged victorious.
I would be very happy to help the candidates out there as much as possible in whatever way I can.
Okay, so let's start with the result checking story and family reactions. What is your story and how was the celebration that followed?
When the results came out, I was not expecting that the results would come out so soon. So, just after about 5 or 6 days of the interviews getting over, the results had come out. And I was just randomly watching some YouTube videos, and I thought that it's been quite a few days that I haven't checked the RBI website, so maybe I should just check it. I was not expecting the result would be out. So right when I opened the page, it said that the final result, grade B DPR. I was very shocked that, oh my God, has it really come out? So I checked the result, and at the first instance, I could not find my roll number. I was like, okay, another attempt then.
That dreaded pudding sound of the search bar.
Right. So then I calmed myself. I thought that, okay, let's check it once more. And then I could see my roll number. I verified my roll number from my interview call letter also with 3-4 times at least, that am I reading it right or not. And then finally it was right. I then informed my parents about it. They were very, very happy, very happy. My brother and sister-in-law all were extremely happy. So that made me happy. It took me quite a while to, believe it, to come back to the reality. But yeah, I mean, that moment was, of course, unforgettable.
Definitely, it takes time to sink in the reality.
Right.
Okay, so we can start with a brief background about yourself so that the aspirants can relate to your story more. Was this your first attempt?
No, it was my second attempt.
Okay.
I had given my first attempt back in 2021, wherein I reached till phase 2. So this was now my second attempt.
And a brief background about you?
Sure. So I was born and raised in Delhi. My bachelor's is from Janki Devi Memorial College, University of Delhi. After that, I did my master's from Center for Development Studies, Trivandrum, which is affiliated to JNU. And I completed my master's in 2020, and after that, I decided to prepare for this exam.
Okay, so you were you working?
No, I was not working.
Okay.
For a brief while, however, in January 2021, I did work as a guest assistant professor in Hansraj College. But then I thought that it's maybe not letting me, focus completely or to give my 100% towards my preparation. So I left the job for preparation.
So you were fully charged towards RBI.
Right, sir.
Okay, so what was the motivation behind specifically RBI? Your family members were civil servants, so wasn't it pulling force?
It was, of course, a pulling force to have a high ambition for when it comes to career, high career ambitions. But specifically why for RBI, and that too in DEPR, was because right from my bachelor's, macroeconomics has been my favorite subject. And I believe that RBI DPER perhaps provides the best avenue to be a macroeconomist. So that being one. Second, there are various training programs that RBI provides to its officers, and that I think is an excellent opportunity for your own self-development, as well as to keep yourself updated with the dynamic environment of macroeconomic research. And thirdly, if my own macroeconomic research could supplement in any way the monetary policy formulation and the overall macroeconomic management of the economy that the RBI does, I think there's nothing like it. So it was my great interest in macroeconomics, mainly that led me to have RBI DPER set as my career goal.
So you think monetary policy overpass fiscal policy?
Definitely not. It's not that. I mean, both of them have their equal importance, great importance for the economy. But the working in RBI DEPR is much more macroeconomic research specific. So that's why it was just my own interest that drove me towards there.
Amazing, amazing. So it is said that well begun is half done. How did you start off with your preparation? Was it during your post-graduation time? Was it in the graduation or after that?
So I started my preparation only after being done with my postgrad. I did not start anything during my masters. It was only after getting done with it. And of course, there were a few mistakes that I had committed during my first year of preparation, because of which I could not clear it back then. But yeah, I mean, learning from my mistakes and all, and then experience also teaches you quite a lot. Then what should be done, what should not be done. And I tried my best to rectify those mistakes this time.
Okay, so let's know the tricks of the trade of learning from the experiences. So what was your approach towards the syllabus like? Since many students find it very vague, the syllabus defined by RBI. So how did you approach it?
Right, sir. So you have rightly pointed out that there's no particularly well-defined syllabus for RBI DPR, and that is perhaps the biggest reason why I could not clear this in my first attempt. It was because whatever I had covered, whatever syllabus that I followed, that was not adequate. So this time around, what I did was I also started my preparation for Indian Economic Service, because I thought that firstly, it's too risky to have just one thing targeted. Maybe I should diversify also a little bit. And secondly, looking at the syllabus of Indian Economic Service, it's quite comprehensive. It's a very wide, comprehensive syllabus, very detailed. And I thought that whatever mistakes or whatever gaps that were there in my first year of preparation, I think those all could be filled out if I follow the syllabus of IES. That would be equally helpful for DEPR as well. So yeah, that was IES syllabus was my base for DEPR preparation also this time.
Okay, so can you briefly tell about the sources which you referred?
Right, sir. So my book list was so the most important subjects are these: microeconomics, macroeconomics, statistics, econometrics, right? So for microeconomics, my primary source was H.L. Ahuja. It's a book called Advanced Economic Theory. And I also followed a little bit from Nicholson and Snyder, particularly for the numericals practice. I had practiced examples from that book and a few selective topics, whatever were important and were not covered in H.L. Ahuja perhaps. Then for macroeconomics, Froyen is the most followed book. So I had also followed that book, and a few selective topics from H.L. Ahuja's macroeconomics book as well. Then comes econometrics. For that, I followed Basic Econometrics by Gujarati and Porter. It's the 5th edition. And then you have International Economics. Dominic Salvatore is the most standard, most popular book out there for it. And for Development Economics, I had followed again book called Development Economics by H.L. Ahuja. Now, most people follow Thalwal or M.L. Jhingan, but when I found this book, I found it pretty simple, very lucid and very easy to understand. I mean, I think that book is quite great, and it should. I mean, that book deserves some credit. And a little bit, whatever few theories or models were left out, were maybe not in natural language. For that, I followed the internet only. Then for some numericals practice, there's a book called Sharma's series. So that book is available for different subjects, for micro, macro, statistics, econometrics, and all. I followed it for econometrics and a little bit for mathematical economics, as well as econometric statistics and what mathematical economics, right?
Mhm.
So I practiced examples from that book. So that book, and for then comes the Indian economy. Now, Indian economy is quite a dynamic subject. You don't have one particular source where you find all of it in that book. What I did was, of course, apart from the dynamic sources for which you follow newspapers, economic survey, union budget, and all, my other sources were Uma Kapila, Mishra and Puri, and yeah, I think these were my sources for Indian economy. And overall, what I would suggest is that to the students, that instead of following or reading a book cover to cover, what should be your approach is to follow the syllabus topic wise. So instead of going with picking up one book and then thinking that okay, I will read this book entirely. Instead, you should be looking at the syllabus. So as I said, I followed IES syllabus. So looking at that syllabus, you pick the topics, and you target the completion of those topics from whatever best sources you can get out there. So yeah, this was these were all my sources. So, yeah.
I think that was a pretty sorted strategy. You had all your weapons at your disposal. Now, coming to like the phase one, I think the most important part, since it's a objective paper, people tend to leave the questions. What strategy did you make for attempting the questions?
Right. So because phase one has negative marking also, you cannot afford to attempt too many, and nor can you, of course, attempt too little. So there has to be certain balance. What I think is a safe zone for it is to at least aim for more than 45 questions so total number of questions is 62. So at least aim for more than 45. I had attempted 49.
Mhm.
And at maths, I think don't go beyond 55, 56. I mean, that would again, I think that would be too risky. And then exactly, particularly what strategy a student should be making depends on your own preparation, your own learnings from mock tests that you give, and the more numericals that you follow, more practice that you do. So the correct approach would be to give as many mock tests for it as possible, and there, with each mock test, with subsequent tests, you will learn what is the safe zone for you. How much is your accuracy? How much should you be aiming for? I'm the number of questions to be attempted. That I think would be a good strategy for this.
Did you have a number of rounds, kind what toppers suggest? I did 3 rounds of question paper or 2 rounds of question paper. Did you have that strategy in mind?
So I could not do rounds of question paper. I mean, I completed my question paper just 10 seconds before the timer was about to go out. I could not revisit the entire question paper again. But I think all of that comes with your own practice only. I mean, people judge for themselves that what could be their own way of attempting the question paper.
Okay. Amazing. Amazing. In phase two, I think selecting the questions is the most important part since you are given options. What was your strategy regarding the same?
I think that so in total, as for the awareness of the students out there, there are 5 questions in each section. There are 2 questions in total, and in each section you have 5 questions. And in total, you are to attempt 5 questions, and from each section, at least 2 questions. So that extra third one is up to you, where from which section do you attempt. And I think that attempting more from section A, which comprise subjects are like microeconomics, macroeconomics, core economic subjects. It maybe would fetch you more marks, because Indian economy, so the second section is of Indian economy, and that Indian economy section is maybe a little bit less scoring. But of course, it all depends on your preparation only. If you think that you are much more prepared for Indian economy, then go ahead with the third question from the Indian economy. I had attempted 3 questions from section A and 2 from section B, and I think that there is a scope of there's less scope of subjectivity in those core economics, more technical subjects, than how it is in Indian economy. Yeah, that was my understanding.
Okay, so how much did you focus on typing and writing on papers, since both of them are important? So did you focus on writing much, or did you practice typing?
Right. So I'll come to writing first. So for the economics paper in phase 2, that has to be written by hand. So for that, I used to practice past year questions of IES. So I had made a plan such that in every week or 10 days, this was after I was done with my entire syllabus and when I was in the revision phase of my preparation, that after every week or about 10 days, I would attempt 2 or 3 question papers from the past years, and that gave me a good writing practice. Also, I used to send out my answers to my brother and sister-in-law. As you said that they are civil servants, so my brother is in Indian Foreign Service, my sister-in-law is in Indian Administrative Service, so there I am quite fortunate to get guidance from them who have had experience with the UPSC civil services, and they are well aware of the answer writing styling that goes when it comes to these competitive exams. So I could get a pretty useful feedback from them. So I would show my answers to them also. I would practice from the past year question papers of IES, and this way I would practice for answer writing. Then coming to typing for English paper in phase 2. Now, the case with me is that almost, if not all, but more than at least 50 to 60% of my notes were digitally made. So this goes specifically for those subjects which are not too mathematical or not too technical in nature. So apart from subjects like micro, macro, econometrics and all, for subjects like Indian economy and subjects of paper 3, general economics paper 3 of IES, I had made notes digitally, and I never used to copy paste. I would always type by hand. So almost daily I was making notes from newspapers also. So almost daily I was typing. So throughout the year, the daily typing gave me a pretty good practice for English paper also, indirectly, although that was not my intention originally. But yeah, I think after having given the exam, I think that helped me tremendously. And then for English preparation for the English paper separately, you should be, so the students should be also looking at the memory based question papers, and also see the topics that are most frequently asked in essays. So make a few, brief notes on these topics that are most frequently asked, accumulate some content on those. And for Prezi, you can watch some YouTube videos that are there online, that how to make a Prezi, and especially in case of banking exams. So for exams of SEBI, NABARD, RBI, in all of these, you have to type in English paper. So how to make Prezi in those exams, you have to type. So for that, students can watch YouTube videos, and that's what I did for English paper. Yeah.
So the digital notes became blessing in disguise for you.
Right.
Okay. So you also mentioned about the revision, which you were doing some days before the examination. So course gets completed of the topper specifically.
Right.
So can you help us with your revision strategy?
Right. So here, I would like to tell the students that uh, the planning, when we think about the planning for competitive exams, what we focus more on just the completion of syllabus. We don't think about these minute details like how to do revision, how to do your answer writing practice. Planning involves each and every step of your preparation, and not just it doesn't stop only till your syllabus completion of syllabus. So here the role of my sister-in-law comes in. She told me how she used to do revision when back then when she prepared for civil services, and how to do revision, how to make notes and all. Revision played a very important role in my overall preparation. So what I used to do was I used to make my own notes, of course. I mean, that should be the case. For with every student, don't rely on just ready-made notes or notes from someone else. Make your own notes. So making my own notes, and then when I would be revising, I would not be I would not just read my notes. I would instead make even briefer notes out of my original set of notes. In particularly the terminology for it is condensing your notes. There are, in fact, some YouTube tutorials out there. If I had watched those tutorials out there, how to condense your notes. So this is something that I did for for some subjects. I did it more than once. I would do this 2 or 3 times with every subsequent revision. For some I did only once, but I made sure that I do it for almost every subject, and that ensured that my revision, my learning is more active, that my memorization, my retention is much better, as it would be in case if I just read my notes. So that's how I used to revise all my stuff, and that actually then helped me quite a lot in my answer writing also, because I mean, I could see that when I write or when I make my notes even briefer while revising, it helps me in retention, and then I am also able to write better answers because I am remembering more stuff. And I mean, I must admit this, that by the time of phase 2 of RBI, I think the number of revisions that I had done was, so of course only till 2 or 3 times I had condensed my notes, and then I was just reading those very brief, very condensed notes that I had, and they were pretty brief. They would not take much time to revise. So, and by the time of phase 2 of RBI, I had revised, I think, at least 8 to 10 times or everything, every subject. So yeah, that is, I mean, I must say this, I must tell all the students there that this was a very, very important thing that I did in my preparation.
That must not be fearful to the students, but should be motivational instead. So okay, so let's go on to the last part, that is, how was your interview experience?
Right, sir. So my actual interview went well, I would say. And now that the mark sheets are also out, I would say that interview had the major role in my selection.
Okay.
So the actual interview, so we get a biodata form that we are required to fill out before the actual interview, and from that, so by that biodata is the reference for the panel members before us. So and so firstly, the preparation of your biodata has to be done pretty well. Make a list of all the probable questions that you can think of from your biodata. In my actual interview also, most of the questions were based on my biodata only. I had, and and more particularly, it was from the research papers, the term papers that I had mentioned that I did during my masters. So I had mentioned 2 of my papers, and most questions were from there only. One of the paper was related to food inflation in India, and the other one was related to international trade. And from these, the topics were also such that you can make, I mean, a lot of questions from the current affairs also in these topics. So I was prepared for that, and very expectedly, the questions also came from there. questions were asked like the energy prices and food inflation are the major driving forces in the ongoing inflation currently in India. So, what outlook do you see for inflation in India? And then they also asked me about the difference between balance of payment and balance of trade. So, this is from international trade. They had asked me about a few questions from banking sector also. The liquid. Do you think that the banks are facing any liquidity constraints currently? And initially the chairman had asked me about where do I want to work specifically if I am selected for RBI, which area I would want to work in. So there comes the role of your awareness with regard to the functions of RBI. So these were some of the questions that were asked. It was mostly all current affairs based, and all of them could be could be expected from what I had mentioned in my biodata itself. So that's how the interview went.
So you predicted your interview before your actual interview.
Not entirely, but that's how the interview preparation should go. I mean, you yourself make as many questions as possible for yourself, that looking at your biodata, what could be asked. Yeah.
Okay. Definitely. Now, how was your experience with Ecoholics?
Right, sir. So I had enrolled for mock interview interview guidance for RBI DPER with Ecoholics, and there was a mock interview that was conducted by Ecoholics, and I must say that was pretty helpful. The kind of questions that were asked and the feedback that I had received, all were very good. Not only did it provide me the practice of speaking and help me in building confidence, but also helped me gauging better the kind of questions that may be asked in the interview as well. So in the mock interview also, I was asked mostly around the current affairs, things like depreciation of rupee or depletion of foreign exchange reserves. So all of that, I mean, that was, and the feedback that I received, that was also very insightful. And if I may take this opportunity to talk about some preparation related to interview also, I think that in DEPR specifically, interview stage is very, very important. It perhaps, in my opinion, plays the deciding role. It is sort of a deciding factor in your selection. Unlike in the case of civil services or IES, where the deciding factor is mostly your written exam. But I think that in DEPR, interview is also that important. So for interview preparation, I took that very, very seriously. In total, I had given about 6 mocks, most of which were with my elder brother, which were incredibly helpful. Of course, and as I said, with Ecoholics also, I had enrolled for mock interviews, and then I had, apart from my biodata preparation, I had also been very thorough with the RBI website, the functions of RBI, different policy rates that are there, and what are the recent publications that are being published on the RBI website. Its latest RBI bulletin that had come out back then in September. So I had I had prepared all of that. And lastly, this is something that I would very highly recommend to all the students: watching news discussions, especially those that are there on these business news channels like CNBC TV 18 and all. So those are going to help you tremendously in learning how to articulate your answers and what the experts are talking, or what the experts are telling when it comes to opinions with regard to the current economic happenings. And apart from this, yes, the MPC announcement had also come out at the end of September. So our interviews were during the mid of October. Mine was on 15th October. So in the end of September, the MPC announcement was also made. And I had watched its press conference also. So post the announcement, and in fact, that banking liquidity constraint question that I just mentioned, that was something that one media person had asked the governor in the press conference. And thankfully, because I had watched it and I watched the press conference and I had made a few notes also on that, I was able to mention this in my answer also, that this is something that governor himself had clarified on, and things like that. So I mean, apart from your reading of newspaper and all, following RBI website, being thorough with your biodata, there should be emphasis put on the news channels also, watching these news discussions, watching the press conference if the MPC announcement is made recently. So yeah, and of course, as many mocks as you can, give as many mocks as you can with your family, friends, and Ecoholics, and whatever sources that you can find. Yeah, that's I would like to highlight.
Okay, thank you so much. That was very nicely explained to the students on how you prepared. Now, lastly, I would give you the opportunity to thank the pillars of your preparation. So, you have already mentioned your brother and sister-in-law. Other than that, the parents do have a bigger role to play. So, you can have this opportunity to thank them.
Right, sir. So, of course, I mean, my family has been the pillar of strength all throughout this journey. Not only did I get the perfect guidance from my brother and sister-in-law, but also the support that I received from my parents, whether emotionally or just ensuring that I have all the comfort that I need all throughout this journey, was of course something that they ensured, and all of that has contributed in this, in me being here now. And yeah, I mean, without them, without my family, this couldn't have been done.
Okay. Okay, that's it, Kanupriya. Thanks a lot for being a part of our family. We hope that students do benefit a lot from your insights and reach RBI as officers in the upcoming batches to thank you. So, thank you for taking out time in these times of celebration. We wish you all the very best for all your future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, and thank you for having me here. I'm really glad if anyone out there is if finds this useful in any way possible. So
Definitely.
thank you, sir.
Thank you.